I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sabrina and I am from the Universitas Ciputra, Surabaya. Today, I'm from the closing government team is going to talk about our motion for today, which is the House would impoverish corruptors. So first, let's talk about the opening government. They said they agree with the motion because by the urgency and status quo right now, the current law couldn't stop the corruption. So it is motivate others to corrupt because there isn't enough punishment. We can see it by many cases where the former corruptor they just got out of the jail, they're free from the jail, but then they corrupt again. So here, the opening government wants to impoverish them to the point where they become ordinary people. How? They want to impoverish these corruptors by taking more than 100% of what they have stolen from the nations. On the other side, the opposition said it is against human right to put someone in poverty, that then you can never change the corruptor. So they feel like the punishment that this motion is talking about is really pointless and they cannot change the corruptors. They also talk about it will hassle the government more because there might be some kind of technical or human error and we cannot keep up with the track record that the corruptor has. And it will also possible to make the corruptor corrupt again and also even worse, which is committing a crime such as stealing or killing because now they become poor. But the opposition didn't answer the urgency from the government team because they didn't provide another mechanism to solve the problem. They just stay with the current status quo right now, which is still problematic because it isn't enough to punish the corruptors. And as what the opening government said, it will make other people corrupt more because they know there isn't enough punishment. So the goal here is to make the corruptors regret what they're doing and want to make them an ordinary people so that they don't have power to corrupt again and they know how it feels to become an ordinary people. I have a few refutations for this. The first one, as I mentioned earlier, the opposite said there might be system or human error on investigation because we won't be able to keep up with the track record that this corruptor has. So uh, we don't know the corruptor had corrupt in which states and how many did they corrupted. They also worried about how this will bring more trouble for the government doing all the investigation, and also this policy will make the former corruptor commit crime. The opposite also said that it is against human right to put someone in poverty, right? So for that, we have an extension of the opening government's mechanism. Instead of pay back more than 100% of what they have stolen, instead, we just have to cut the money to the standard amount, which is the minimum poverty. So all the corruptors, it doesn't matter how many they take from the nation, the government is gonna take their asset to a standard amount, which is a minimum poverty. Why? This is to minimize the fact that richer people will do corruption and not feel the punishment with the percentage because we know the corruptor isn't always like poor people. They might be a really rich people, but they just want more. So they do the corruption and become a corruptor. So with a certain amount or certain percentage, it doesn't make them poor to the point where they become like ordinary people. So we think that our mechanism here is more realistic and logic to make this corruptor become an ordinary people than what the opening government had said. And this standard will also let them feel the same amount of punishment without considering their previous wealth. And then we're also going to make this as a rehabilitation. We will do this the same with the opening government because we see that this is important into attempting to change one's behavior to not repeat it again. By this punishment, we are going to control their behavior, which is corruption, and decrease it. What we as the closing government will add to this is we will make sure that they pass the rehabilitation. How? First, we give them job under government. Example, working as a cleaning service in the street or in the office. This is to minimize the impact where the family will fall under poverty and increase the poverty rate of the nation. The second one is giving them a second chance to live again, a happy life and also grow out of poverty. as they are able to work their way up if they have proven that they have improved. And working under government, even at a lower level, will still be under the supervision of the government. So they will be able to keep an eye on this former corruptor and not do the same thing again. So my argument is different from the opening government because they discuss this aspect. Meanwhile, I will further develop into discussing another aspect. So they talk about how this policy will change the corruptor and other people not to corrupt again. But here I want to talk about how it will benefits the government. It will become a beneficial to the government. First, the OG has talked about how this mechanism of impoverishment will reduce the risk of corruptors continuing to the corrupting. Our extension is seeing the benefits on the government, which also makes it more realistic to happen. It's because the government can minimize financial loss and there is no need to imprison the corruptor. They get back the money that got stolen from the corruptors. And then they don't have to worry about imprisoning this corruptor in the prison and like taking care of them. And reasoning number two is the government will also have more control over the society. Government has more power to impoverish someone, so they will be more obedient. By government has the power to impoverish someone, it will make them more obedient and more obedient to the government and didn't dare to do this corruption again. They will fear the government in this area. The punishment is justified and well needed where jail is not enough to have a more punishing outcome. For example, in Saudi Arabia, they cut off the hands of those who have done corruption, and in China, they shoot the people, they do execution. So the government side of the team will follow this footstep, but less extreme physically, but towards impoverishment through the mechanism that has been presented by the closing government. So by choosing impoverishment, it will be more beneficial for the government because it is more accessible and easier punishment. This was also more effective and will minimize the government financial loss and get the money back and not hassle with imprisoning the corruptor. This is really extending what the opening government had said and answering the urgency the opposite side give. Thank you very much.